Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. She called me at 3 o'clock in the morning. My phone lit up on the nightstand, vibrating across the wood until it almost slid off. I fumbled for it, saw her name, Raven, on the screen, and answered on instinct. Her voice was loud and shaky over pounding music. "Terrell, my car declined at the club. Send me $2,000 right now, or they will not let us leave." I was groggy but instantly annoyed. I replied, "Call your father." Then I hung up, powered my phone off, rolled over, and went back to sleep. I had no idea that the next call I would get, later that morning, would be from a police station in Miami. My name is Terrell Jackson. I am 30 years old, and I work in commercial heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Big buildings, big equipment, decent pay, long hours. I had been engaged to Raven Brooks, 27 years old, for 8 months. We were not living together yet. I wanted to make sure we were truly compatible before both of our names ended up on a lease or a mortgage. That had caused arguments by itself, but I stood by it. I had watched too many friends rush into leases with people they barely knew, then spend a year trapped in bad relationships because breaking the lease would cost more than their pride could handle. Raven lived in an apartment across town, about 20 minutes from my place without traffic. She shared a 2-bedroom unit with 2 roommates in a mid-rise building just outside downtown Houston. The apartment was cute enough. Gray sectional couch, faux plants, a gallery wall of framed quotes about manifesting abundance and living your best life, and more shoe boxes stacked in her closet than I thought physically possible. My place was the opposite. A 1-bedroom in a quiet complex, furnished with sturdy, comfortable stuff I had bought slowly over years instead of all at once on a credit card. She called my place basic and functional. I called it paid for. Background on Raven. She grew up in a wealthy family in the suburbs outside Atlanta, with private schools, summer camps, and luxury vacations. She had a trust fund and a credit card with no visible limit until about 2 years ago, when her parents finally cut her off. Every time I asked exactly why, she was vague. She said they were controlling, that they did not understand her independence, that they wanted to micromanage her choices. She would say, "They want me to be this perfect little daughter who marries some corporate lawyer and moves into a house they pick. I'm not doing that." She made it sound like a noble rebellion. The more I learned later, the less noble it seemed. After her parents cut her off, Raven took a job at a marketing firm, making around $40,000 a year. It was honest work, but she spent like she earned well over $100,000. She always had on perfectly styled outfits, designer bags, and fresh nails. When we went out, she wanted rooftop lounges, high-end steakhouses, and trendy spots she had seen on social media. She loved posting pictures, her hand on a cocktail glass, her heels on some marble floor, her reflection in a boutique mirror. Meanwhile, I was calculating the bill in my head and comparing it to what I had just made crawling around in hot mechanical rooms all week. From the beginning, money was a point of tension between us. Raven believed that paying for nearly everything was simply what boyfriends do. She would slide the check across the table with a little smile and say, "Thank you, baby," before I had even looked at it. I, on the other hand, made it clear that I was not going to fund someone else's luxury lifestyle. I make good money in commercial heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, but I am not rich. I have student loans, a car payment, and long-term plans that include retirement, not bottle service every weekend. I told her early, I am willing to be generous, but I am not your bank. Things really started going downhill when her college friend group got involved. There were 4 of them: Maya, Shanice, Carmen, and Raven. They met at a private university and stayed close afterward. Maya had married an investment banker in New York. Shanice was married to a surgeon in Chicago, and Carmen was married to a tech consultant in San Francisco. They spent their days posting pictures of shopping trips, yoga retreats, and brunches with champagne towers. Their husbands covered everything. They were nice enough to my face, but their values were obvious. Whenever I was around them, I could feel the pressure they put on Raven to keep up with their lifestyle. They would talk about spur-of-the-moment trips to Napa Valley in California, weekends in Las Vegas, Nevada, and shopping sprees that would wipe out my emergency fund in one swipe. One brunch, I overheard Maya say, You are not coming to Napa again? Girl, you are going to miss all the fun. Shanice added, I could not live like that. I would feel so trapped if I had a budget, every little thing. They laughed, sipping their mimosas, and I watched Raven stare at her menu like it was a bill she could not pay. When Raven admitted she could not join one of their trips, the comments turned ugly. Carmen said, It is just sad that you have to worry about money so much at our age. We are supposed to be enjoying life. She said it with a gentle tone, but the words were sharp. Raven laughed it off, but I saw her jaw tighten. That night, on the drive home, she was quiet until she finally said, Sometimes I feel like I am the only one who did not figure it out. I replied, You are working and paying your own way. That is what figuring it out actually looks like. She did not seem convinced. I told Raven many times that these women were not real friends. Real friends do not pressure you to spend money you do not have just to keep up appearances. Real friends do not make you feel less than because you have a job. Raven defended them every time. You do not know them like I do, she would say. They are just used to a different lifestyle. They do not mean anything by it. But she kept trying to match their habits, even when it meant skipping bills or buying cheap groceries at the end of the month. I started to suspect credit cards were filling the gap between her income and her image. The first concrete sign was a night at my apartment when she left her laptop open on the dining table while she showered. An email popped up from a credit card company with the subject line, Your payment is past due. I did not snoop, but I could not unsee the subject and the amount on the preview. The minimum due alone was more than my car payment. When she came back into the room, I watched her quickly close the laptop and force a smile. Do you want to watch something? She asked. I almost asked about it but hesitated. That was my mistake. 3 weeks before everything exploded, Raven's friend Maya got engaged to yet another finance guy. This one an investment banker out of New York. My social media feed lit up with pictures of a ring, a huge center stone that looked like it could blind someone in direct sunlight. They planned an engagement party at a fancy venue downtown, complete with an open bar, past appetizers, and string lights draped from the ceiling. It was the kind of event people post about for months afterward, the kind that looks like a magazine spread. It also looked like it cost more than most people's cars. At the party, I watched the 4 women orbit each other like they were on a reality show. They compared dresses, designer labels I had only seen in malls I never went into. They subtly weighed ring sizes. They bragged about upcoming trips, a birthday in Las Vegas, Nevada, a couple's retreat in Miami, a wine tour in Napa Valley. Raven smiled and nodded, but I could tell every conversation took something out of her. When the men drifted to the bar to talk about sports and business, one of the women laughed and said, Maya's ring is a real engagement ring. That is what commitment looks like. I glanced at Raven's hand and saw her fingers close slightly over the modest ring I had given her. Raven had borrowed a dress from her roommate, Deja, because she did not want to repeat an outfit her friends had already seen on social media. The dress looked beautiful on her, but she still whispered to me, I feel underdressed. Look at them. She gestured slightly toward her friends, who glittered under the lights with sequins, gold jewelry, and shoes that probably cost a week of my pay. Later that night, on the balcony outside the venue, she stood next to me and watched Maya pose for photos with her fiancé. She is so lucky, Raven said quietly. He can give her everything she wants. She did not look at me when she said it, but she did not have to. That was the moment I knew we were in trouble. I realized she was not looking at me as a partner to build a life with. She was evaluating my earning potential against her friends' husbands. I was not a person in those moments. I was a bank account with a heartbeat. On the drive home, she stared out the window, scrolling through pictures from the party. I asked, You good? She said, I am fine, but it sounded like a lie wrapped in lipstick. The week after the engagement party, Raven started dropping hints about wanting a bigger ring. Mine was a simple 1-carat diamond from a national jewelry chain, chosen carefully within my budget. We had even discussed it before I bought it. One evening, while we were sitting on her couch, she pulled up a picture of Maya's ring on her phone. Is it crazy that sometimes I wish mine was just a little more? She said. Something that shows how serious you are about me. I responded, We already talked about what we can afford. The ring I gave you is within my means and still special. That is what matters. She pressed on. I'm not asking for something massive. Maybe just a different setting. Or a bigger stone someday. Madison has 3 carats, and Carmen's is at least 2. People notice these things. I try to keep my voice calm. People who care more about jewelry than the relationship might notice. I do not. A few days later, I came over and heard her voice from the bedroom while she talked on the phone. I mean, it is sweet, but it is so small, she was telling someone. I am embarrassed when people ask to see it. It looks like a promise ring, not an engagement ring. I stood in the hallway and felt something in me harden. About 2 weeks later, Raven sat across from me at a coffee shop and announced her next big idea. So, we are planning my bachelorette party, she said, stirring her latte. We are thinking Miami, South Beach. A long weekend at a resort, pool, clubs, everything. It will be so fun. She sounded excited and breathless. How much is that going to cost? I asked. About $3,000 per person, she replied, like she was ordering a sandwich. Flights, hotel, dinners, clubs. And I want to bring my sister Jada, so it will be about $6,000 from my side. I laughed, thinking she had to be joking. $6,000 for a weekend. I said, where do you think that money is coming from? She did not laugh. My friends are covering their portions, she said. I told them you would handle mine and Jada's as an engagement gift. It is my bachelorette party, Terrell. It only happens once. The words hit me like a slap. I'm not spending $6,000 on a party while we are supposed to be saving for a wedding and a future, I replied. Absolutely not. If you want to go to Miami, you can pay for it yourself. The fight that followed was loud and ugly. You are so controlling, Raven said, voice shaking with anger. Every time I want to do something special, you shut it down. Any man who really loves his fiancée would want her to have fun with her friends. Instead, you make me look poor and pathetic. I replied, we already talked about being financially compatible. I'm not going to bankrupt myself trying to keep up with people who were born into money. You can choose between the Miami trip and having a fiancé, because I am not funding both. She stared at me as if I had slapped her, then grabbed her bag. You know what? I will stay at Shanice's for a while, she said. Maybe she will not make me feel like I am asking for too much. She walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. For 3 days, she did not answer my calls or texts. I went to work, came home, stared at my phone, and replayed our arguments in my head. One evening, my older sister called and asked why I sounded so distracted. I told her a shortened version of the story. She said, Terrell, she is showing you who she is. Believe her. On the 4th day, Raven showed up at my apartment. Her makeup was perfect, her hair neatly styled, but her eyes looked tired. I figured something out, she said as soon as I opened the door. My father is going to pay for the trip. He said he will cover my flight and hotel if I promise to be more responsible with money going forward. She said it like the problem had been neatly solved. I frowned. I thought your parent cut you off, I said. You told me they would not give you anything. She shrugged. They are willing to help for special occasions. It is my bachelorette, Terrell. Can you just be happy for me? I did not believe her, not fully. Something in the story did not add up, but I was tired of fighting. If your father truly wants to pay, that is between you and him, I said. I'm still not paying for it. She nodded quickly, too quickly. Of course. I get it. This way it does not affect our budget at all. She kissed my cheek and started talking about outfits and reservations. I watched her talk and tried to ignore the unease in my stomach. The trip was scheduled for a Thursday through Sunday in Miami. On Thursday morning, I drove Raven to the airport. She had 2 giant suitcases, a carry-on stuffed with makeup and jewelry, and a designer tote bag she had bought on super sale. She buzzed with excitement, taking selfies in the car and posting a video captioned, "Bachelorette weekend starts now." At the security line, she turned and kissed me. "I love you," she said. "When I get back, we can really dive into wedding planning." I said I loved her too and watched her disappear into the crowd. A few hours later, my social media feed started filling up with her posts. First, a boomerang of mimosas at the airport bar. Then a picture of her feet stretched out in a first-class seat. That was the first red flag. First class had not been in any budget we had discussed. That evening, she posted videos from an elegant restaurant in Miami Beach where the appetizers alone probably cost what I spent on groceries in a week. Friday's posts were more of the same. Photos from a resort pool in South Beach, their group lounging in a private cabana with a server bringing cocktails on a tray. I looked up the resort out of curiosity and saw that cabanas like that rented for around $500 a day. Later, she posted a photo of shopping bags from designer stores along Lincoln Road in Miami Beach. The caption read, "Had to treat myself." I stared at the picture, then at my bank app, then at the ceiling. I did not say anything. I told myself it was not my money, that her father was supposedly paying. I tried to focus on work, but every time I opened my phone, there she was in another expensive outfit, at another high-end spot. By Saturday afternoon, there were pictures of a yacht rental. The group posed on the deck with the Miami skyline in the background, drinks in hand, laughing like people in a commercial. I thought about what her $40,000 a year paycheck actually looked like and felt my stomach twist. Around midnight Friday, I got a text from Raven. A blurry photo of her and her friends at a rooftop club, bottles on the table, sparklers in the background. "Wish you were here," she wrote, followed by a string of heart emojis. I answered, "Hope you're having fun. Be safe." She sent back a kiss emoji and a picture of her blowing a kiss to the camera. I put my phone on the nightstand, plugged it in, and went to sleep with the ringer off. I did not see the missed calls that started around 2 in the morning. When I finally answered at 3:17 a.m., it was because the buzzing had knocked my phone halfway off the table. I saw a Raven on the screen and answered, groggy. Loud music and voices flooded my ear. "Terrell, thank God you answered," she yelled over the noise. "I need you to send me money right now." I sat up. "What are you talking about? What is wrong?" She spoke fast. "My car declined at the club. We ran up this huge tab, and security took our identification cards. They're calling the police if we cannot pay right now. I need you to send me $2,000, or we're going to get arrested." I swung my legs out of bed, suddenly wide awake. "What do you mean your car declined?" I asked. "I thought your father was paying for this trip." She hesitated. "He gave me money for the hotel and flights," she said, "but we have been spending more than expected. My credit card are maxed out, and the girls do not have enough cash to cover the tab. You have to help me, Terrell." My mind raced. "How much is the tab?" I asked. She swallowed. I could hear it, even over the music. $8,000, she said. "But they said they will settle for 6 if we pay cash tonight." "Please, baby. Security will not give us our identification cards back, and I am scared." $8,000 for one night at a club. I cannot even wrap my mind around that. Bottle service, tips, taxes. It must have been one of those ridiculous tourist traps in South Beach. But what really hit me was not the number itself. It was how casually she assumed I would wire her thousands of dollars in the middle of the night to bail her out of something she had created. "Raven," I said slowly, "there was never any money from your father for this trip, was there? You put the whole thing on credit cards, and now you are stuck with a bill you cannot pay." There was a long pause. I heard muffled voices in the background, someone asking, "Did he send it?" Then she started to cry. "Please do not do this to me," she said, her voice breaking. "I made a mistake, but I need help right now. We can talk about everything else later." They are serious about calling the police. I'm terrified. I closed my eyes and rubbed my forehead. "Call your father," I said quietly. "If he has money to support your lifestyle, then he has money to get you out of this mess. I'm not your automated teller machine." She sounded furious and desperate all at once. "You cannot be serious," she said. "I am your fiancé. When someone you love is in trouble, you help them. What kind of person turns their back like this?" I responded, "When someone you love lies to you about money and runs up thousands of dollars in debt behind your back, you learn who they really are. I'm not paying for this. Figure out yourself." She sobbed, "Terrell, please." But I ended the call, powered my phone off again, and lay there in the dark, heart pounding. After a while, exhaustion won, and I fell asleep. Around 9 the next morning, I turned my phone back on. It came alive with a flood of notifications. Missed calls from Raven, from unknown Miami numbers, text messages full of please and "I am begging you," and "they are taking us in." There were voicemails I did not listen to. My chest tightened, but I forced myself not to call back. I made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and tried to read the news instead of thinking about my fiancé in a police station. Around 11, my phone rang again, this time from a Miami area code I did not recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. "Hello," I said. "Is this Terrell Jackson?" a man asked. "Yes," I replied. "This is Sergeant Williams with the Miami Beach Police Department," he said. "We have your fiancée, Raven Brooks, in custody. She asked us to contact you." My throat went dry. "Is she okay?" I asked. He replied, "She is fine physically. She spent the night in county lockup. She will be released this morning if someone can post her bail. What are the charges? I asked, even though I already knew part of the answer. Theft of services and disorderly conduct, he said. She and 3 other women accumulated a substantial bill at a nightclub and were unable to pay. When officers arrived to investigate, your fiancée became belligerent and resisted when they attempted to place her under arrest. I pictured Raven, drunk and panicking, yelling at officers in her sequin dress. I felt equal parts sadness, anger, and a strange sense of inevitability. How much is the bail? I asked. $1,000 cash or bond, he replied. The club is also seeking restitution for their losses, which our reports show totaled over $8,000. He paused. Ms. Brooks insisted you would handle the situation, bail and payment arrangements. She said you were her emergency contact. I took a slow breath. Officer, I appreciate the call, I said, but I am not in Miami and I will not be posting bail or covering any costs related to this incident. She will need to contact her family or friends for assistance. There was a long pause. Sir, are you sure? He asked. She was very insistent that you would come through. We can give you information for a bail bondsman. I said, I am sure. She created this situation with her choices, and she can figure out how to resolve it. Thank you for letting me know she is physically okay. He exhaled audibly. All right, Mr. Jackson, he said. We will inform her that she will need to make other arrangements. After I hung up, I sat at my table for a long time, staring at the condensation on my coffee mug. The next few hours were loud, even though I was alone in my apartment. Raven's friends began calling one after another. First Shanice, who practically screamed into the phone. How could you leave her in jail like that? She's your fiancée, Terrell. I said, I told her before the trip that I would not pay for it. She lied to me and put herself in this position. Shanice snapped. She was scared out of her mind. You were supposed to protect her. I replied, if you're such a good friend, maybe you and your husband can help her. Then I hung up. Maya called next, her voice icy. This is emotional abuse, she said. You are punishing her to prove a point. Do you know how this will look for her? Her own fiancé refusing to help when she needs him the most. I said, what it looks like is someone facing consequences for the first time. I'm not responsible for the tab you all ran up. Carmen sent a long text accusing me of ruining their friendship by abandoning Raven. I wrote back. The tab was $8,000. You all were there. If you care that much, pay it. Around 3 in the afternoon, I got a call from another unfamiliar number. I answered, expecting another friend. Instead, a deeper, older voice said, Terrell, this is Leon Brooks, Raven's father. I had only met him twice at family gatherings. His voice carried the same authority in my kitchen that it had at those dinners. We need to talk, he said. About what, Mr. Brooks? I asked, although I already knew. About the fact that my daughter is sitting in a jail cell because her fiancé refused to help her in an emergency, he said. I almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. With respect, I replied, this emergency only exists because Raven lied about having the money for a trip she could not afford. She told me you were paying for Miami. Silence. Then he sighed, the sound heavy through the phone. We have not given Raven money in more than 2 years, he said. She burned through her trust fund in 6 months. We cut her off because we were trying to teach her responsibility. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. So she lied to me about everything, I said quietly. The trip, the shopping, the restaurants. It was all on credit cards she cannot pay off. Probably, he said. Look, I'm on my way to Miami now. I'm going to handle the bail and legal fees because she is my daughter. But you should know something. Raven owes roughly $40,000 on various credit cards. This Miami trip probably added another $15,000 to $20,000 to that total. The room seemed to tilt. $60,000. I asked. Give or take, he replied. And that is just what we know about. My stomach dropped. I thought about our conversations about saving for a house, paying for a wedding, maybe having children. I imagined bringing that much unsecured debt into a marriage, combined with a partner who was still spending like there was endless money behind her. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Leon was quiet for a moment. Because you seem like a decent man, he finally said. And you deserve to know what you are signing up for if you stay with her. Raven has always had a problem with money and consequences. Cutting her off was supposed to help, but she just found other ways to finance her habits. After we hung up, I sat in silence, my phone on the table between my hands. Memories flooded in, rearranging themselves now that I had the full picture. The times Raven pushed for restaurants we could not afford. The way she dismissed my concerns as negative thinking. The late-night online shopping sessions. The packages that showed up at her apartment every week. The way she seemed offended whenever I brought up budgets or long-term plans. All of it suddenly felt less like carelessness and more like a pattern. That evening, around 7, my phone rang again. This time it was Raven. "Hello." I answered flatly. "Terrell," she said, voice thick with tears. "I am so sorry. I know I messed up. My father bailed me out, and we are at the airport waiting for a flight home. Please, can we talk about this?" I let her speak for a few minutes. She told me how humiliating it had been to be in a holding cell, how she had panicked, how she had never been that scared in her life. She repeated that she loved me, that she had just wanted one special weekend. After about 5 minutes, I cut in. "Raven," I said, "it is over." There was a beat of stunned silence. "What do you mean it is over?" she asked. I said, "I am sorry. I know I made mistakes, but people in relationships help each other through hard times. We can fix this." I said, "This is not about one bad night at a club. You have been lying about money for months while secretly building up tens of thousands of dollars in debt. You planned to bring all of that into our marriage without telling me. That is not just a mistake. That is deception." Her voice turned sharp. "You cannot break up with me over money," she said. "That is cruel and heartless." I was scared and desperate. The girls were all spending money, and I did not want to look poor next to them. "You know how important those friendships are to me," I replied. "Apparently they are more important than honesty, more important than our future, and more important than basic responsibility. You chose to impress people who would not sit with you in a courtroom over being real with someone who actually cared about you." She started to plead. "I will change," she said. "I will cut up my credit cards. I will go to financial counseling. I will show you every statement, every transaction. I will never lie to you again. Just please do not throw away everything we have built over this. I love you, Terrell. I want to marry you." I felt a dull ache in my chest listening to her. A few months earlier, those words would have broken me. Now, they sounded like promises made too late. "Trust is not something you can just patch with words after you have shattered it this completely," I said. "I am done, Raven. Do not contact me again." She burst into fresh sobs, but I ended the call and blocked her number. That night, I moved through my apartment like a ghost, gathering pieces of our relationship. I took framed photos off shelves. Us at a barbecue, us at a friend's wedding, us on a weekend trip to Austin. I pulled her hoodie out of my closet, the one she always put on when she got cold. I packed her favorite mug, the one she had brought over and left in my cabinet. I placed everything in a large cardboard box and set it by the front door. Every item felt like proof of something that had felt solid and now seemed hollow. The next morning, there was a knock at my door around 9. I opened it to find Raven standing there in the same clothes she had worn the night before, with puffy eyes and a suitcase behind her. She had driven straight from the airport. "Please," she said, voice shaking, "do not do this. Do not throw us away over one weekend." I picked up the box and held it out. "These are your things," I said. "You should take them." She did not take the box. "I love you," she said. "I know I messed up, but I can fix it. I will get a second job. I will cut back on everything. I will do whatever it takes." I felt tired in a way I cannot describe. "I do not love who you have become," I said quietly. "The person I fell for was, or at least seemed, honest and responsible. You have been lying about money and secretly planning to dump your debt on me. That is not love. That is manipulation." Tears streamed down her face. "Everyone makes mistakes," she said. "You are being cold. How can you throw away our future because I handled money badly?" I shook my head. "I am not ending this because you handled money badly. I am ending it because you do not share my values. You care more about appearances and social status than stability. We are not compatible, and we never were." She stood there on my porch, holding the side of the box like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "So that is it," she whispered. "After everything?" I said, "Yes, that is it." I set the box down just inside the doorway, stepped back, and gently closed the door. I could hear her sobbing outside for a while, then the sound of the box being dragged away, then her car starting. I leaned against the door and let out a breath, I felt like I'd been holding for months. In the days that followed, the ripple effects of that weekend kept spreading. Raven tried to contact me through mutual friends, since her number was blocked. Deja, her roommate, called to ask if I was sure. She is a wreck, Terrell, she said. She signed up for credit counseling already. She says she is going to change. I replied, I hope she does change, for her own sake. But I'm not the person who needs to be by her side while she fixes it. Deja sighed. For what it is worth, she said, I think you made the right decision. I saw some of those statements. It is bad. Through Deja and others, I started hearing more details. Raven did not owe $40,000. When everything from Miami was added in, it was closer to $70,000. Her father had hired a lawyer to negotiate down the club bill, arguing that some of the charges were inflated. They got it reduced, but she still owed around $12,000 for that weekend alone between fines, legal fees, and what the club would accept as restitution. She moved back in with her parents in Atlanta because she could not afford her share of rent anymore. On top of that, she lost her job. She had called in sick the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday after the Miami trip, too embarrassed to explain that she had been arrested. Her manager finally called her in for a meeting and let her go. Deja said that when Raven came home with a cardboard box full of desk decorations and a framed certificate from her job, she broke down on the living room floor. Her parents were half furious, half exhausted. Her mother called me once, left a voicemail saying she was angry at me, but also relieved that I would not be pulled into the mess. My own family's reactions were clearer. My mother said, "You did the hard thing, but it was the right thing." My sister shook her head and said, "Imagine if this had come out after you were married." A coworker I trusted listened to the story during a lunch break and said, "Man, you dodge a cannon, not just a bullet." I laughed for the first time in days. At night, when my apartment was quiet, I felt both sadness and an unexpected lightness. I missed the version of Raven I had first fallen for, but I knew that version had not really existed. In the weeks after, I poured my energy into work. I picked up extra shifts, took on more complex projects, and started talking seriously with a realtor about buying a small house within the next year or two. Walking through open houses on Saturdays, I found myself looking at extra rooms and thinking, one day I will share this with someone who wants the same kind of life I do. Not someone chasing validation from friends or trying to keep up a glittering illusion, but someone who understands that a paid bill is more valuable than an Instagram story. I also found myself replaying small moments from the relationship with new clarity. The way Raven would roll her eyes when I suggested a simple date night at home. The way she brushed off my questions about her credit score. The way she lit up more at the prospect of a trip to Napa Valley than at the idea of us saving for a down payment. I started paying more attention to how people around me talked about money, stress, and responsibility. It was not about judging them. It was about seeing the patterns early, before emotions made me ignore what was right in front of me. 3 months earlier, I had been comparing venues, tasting cake samples, and talking about seating charts in my head. Now I was standing in an empty house with a realtor, imagining where a couch would go, thinking about building a life that did not revolve around impressing anyone. The Miami incident was one of the worst weekends of my life while it was happening. Yet as time passed, it became clear that it had drawn a hard, necessary line. Instead of planning a wedding that would have tied me to someone else's chaos, I was planning a future where my hard work would not be swallowed by someone else's refusal to face reality. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.